We're kind of waiting a couple of minutes so we can get the graphics up before we get started, so that's what we're waiting on.
Do you,
Oh, yeah.
Mayor, do you need the graphics for the roll call, invocation, flag salute?
Well, no, but if we do that and then have a 5-minute break in between, that seems awkward, but
There are,
yeah, we got plenty of things.
there
here.
are no, graphics for 3.5 and 3.6, but we can wait. That's,
Okay,
the resolutions probably don't have graphics.
we'll give it to 35 and then we'll go ahead and just start.
Okay.
Thank you.
Oh, Lisa came to me before the meeting started.
My stuff.
I am. Try to play every Wednesday.
I don't know.
My wife just got back. She drove back from Idabel, just got back today. She drove down to, took her sister back to Hot Springs.
I haven't.
Because drove from Hot Springs to Idabel.
One of the guys.
Stayed there to visit relatives down there and then go home the paper.
Go back, she's reading the
Pooch. Yeah, he played with us the other day. Me, him, Skag.
Yeah.
Okay, yes.
Guy out the base.
Yes, indeed.
That's why you're on the.
Yep. Had a good time.
You want to get on his ball or?
Yeah, scrim or so.
Yes.
Yeah.
He's been
Skag. Yeah, he's the
No. Oh, okay. Yeah. I've seen him in
I
short.
remember he said that since you got here.
Well,
You know.
So, it's a lot of fun.
They knew you'd be all right. Now there's you can do something about it. And that's the problem.
Yeah. Yep.
media stuff. Ill-advised. I always have my back. And everything I do is always but I'm better at writing.
She knew. We discussed the time.
Okay. Call the meeting to order. Start with roll call.
Commissioner Allen,
Present.
Commissioner Norwood,
Here.
Commissioner Saragusa, Commissioner Roberts, Commissioner Stallings,
Here.
Commissioner Orr,
Here.
Mayor Pankinen.
Here. Okay, thank you. Tonight, invocation will be by Commissioner Norwood and flag salute by Chief Skaggs.
Would you please bow your heads? Dear Lord Jesus, we thank you for this day. Thank you for blessing us to make it here. Thank you for waking us up this morning. Thank you for watching over us all through the night. Lord, we just want to thank you for shelter and food and clothing and life. Thank you for love and peace. Lord, we pray for the whole world, and we ask that you move by your Spirit and that you allow us as human beings to love one another and to share your love with one another. And Lord, as we proceed in this meeting tonight, please touch our mayor, our assistant city manager. Lord, please touch each councilman, our city attorney, our chief of police and all his staff, and everyone in this place tonight, and those that come before us to present the things that we need to discuss as business. Lord, bless us to make the right decision so that the people can be blessed. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Please join me in the pledge. I
Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thanks, Derwin. Thanks, Chief. Item number 3, administration. Item, are we going to need graphics for 3.1?
Yes.
Okay. Let me go down, we're going to skip down the agenda to item 3.5. Ratify real estate purchase contract for lots 12, 13, and 14 of Block 31 of Jonesville addition to the city of Enid, and authorize payment of $150,000 to Ben and Stephanie Iselle.
move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, please cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item number 3.6. Approve the settlement agreement between complete release from Ben and Stephanie Iselle for the damage to the building located at 324 and 328 East Randolph in Enid, Oklahoma, and authorize the mayor to execute any and all documents to transfer title to the city of Enid.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Okay, thank you. Please cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Okay, going to go back to the top. Item 3.1, approve change order number one with Garney Construction, Kansas City, Missouri, for project number W-2112C, Kaw Lake Water Supply Project, Phase 4 construction, in the amount of $4,176,154, and authorize the mayor to execute all documents.
Thank you, sir.
Yep.
What we'd like to do is go over a little bit of a little overview on some of the things that have gone on, get down to what's in the actual change order, and from there answer your questions, and I believe that'll be the fastest way to deal with this and to get you what you need. You'll recall Michael Graves is here to help us walk through this. Michael?
They may not recall some of the three gentlemen that are on the commission and the mayor, of course. Guys, it has been since January since I have addressed this commission, and that was at the completion of the phase 3 that you see on the slide before you this evening. And we were at that meeting, we were celebrating and congratulating each other because we had a $317 million program that was headed down the tracks and moving forward. I don't know if the 4 of you guys remember that, but I certainly do. That was a big moment. We had also completed the 60% design with the completion of the items in that box, that phase 3 box. And that train was headed down the track with the kickoff of phase 4. Now, as you guys are aware, I know we've had several meetings since January, including some small group meetings where you guys have been briefed on a lot of the activities that are ongoing in the box associated with phase 4. But one of the things that I want to bring to your attention tonight is that as identified in your contract with your CMAR contractor, Garney, there is an item of collaboration for final design with in your contract it says architect, but it's us, the engineer. And that collaboration is required to get that design from 60% complete, which is an unfinished product, to 100% complete, which is a finished product, so that we can obtain permits for the project's construction. That's section 2.3 of your contract with Garney. That effort was budgeted and is in your $317 million budget that we were celebrating in January. I'm very pleased to report that despite the fact that you have a change order tonight to address those changes that have occurred from 60 to 100, your program is still in budget. And there's not an impact to the ratepayers associated with tonight's change order. Next slide. Hey, I get pictures in my email almost weekly about the progress that's going on with the construction phase of this project. We've got you guys have probably had a chance to go out by the water treatment plant and see some of the dirt that's getting moved out there. You also see the intake road construction there on the far left of that middle picture. I see some drainage riprap there in the center of that picture. And then the favorite thing that I like getting in my inbox is the drone footage of the raw water wet well construction and the techniques associated with that 35-foot diameter wet well that is now going 100 feet into the ground. You guys will recall, you can see the lake there off to the right. If you will recall, we are at some point along this construction, and these guys know a lot more about this than I do, they're going to drop a boring machine and they're going to bore out into the lake to start setting the actual intake piping. Really pretty phenomenal stuff from a geeky engineer standpoint to be associated with. And so just wanted to share a couple of those highlights with you. Construction is progressing, things are going well, and we're right where we anticipated we would be with regard to making changes to the design. And it is in alignment with your agreement to do so with your CMAR contractor, Garney.
Okay, so here's what we're here to do this evening. You'll recall you've seen this slide a couple of times. We ended up with our 30% design, progressed to 60, and got our guaranteed maximum price between 60 and 100% and permitted. We did some collaboration, resulted in some changes, some minor changes for the most part, called design progression. Additionally, we had some things that were levied on us out here called regulatory compliance. And what we're here to do today is address those any questions that you have for those two areas and ensure that our GMP is reconciled to 100%, and then get that on going and head on down the road and continue with construction. I will say there's one more item that's hanging out there that I don't have solved yet. It's called county road crossings. Okay, any questions?
I do have a
Yes, sir.
on our GMP and the different contingencies that we have. We have a contingency of
Yes, sir.
$2 million with the city of Enid, and then we also have another contingency, am I right, with Garney?
Yes, that is true. There is also some program cost savings that resulted from the reduced cost at the Corps of Engineer for the storage contract. And so there's $2 million in there for design progression. That is on your table. The construction contract, the construction manager has $4.5 million roughly in construction contingency within his contract, which he has to give us notice before he can utilize.
Okay, so that 4.5 that Garney has, is that amount, will that be used for the change order that's coming up for the pump station, or how's that going to be paid for?
The intent of that is to use the savings that we obtained through the Corps of Engineers to fund that's over $2 million. And that $4.5 million that is in the contract will be used during construction for things that happen during construction that are not changes in scope.
Yeah, that $4.5 million remains there. It'll be for future contingency related to construction only. So we're not reallocating any of that now, right?
So if you wanted to do, and we have a slide that kind of does that math for you, you know, there's the 2 million that we have, the savings, and above that, there's 4.5 million inside the GMP for construction contingency. And Jason can address those questions directly if you would like him to.
Okay, so just moving forward, that's $7 million elaborated together. What happens if there are some unforeseen things to take place? We hope that it doesn't, but if it happens.
Let me get you to this chart. I think this will, so we can talk to it here. So this program savings is what's left over of the 5 million that we got, that we saved with the Corps of Engineers.
Okay,
A portion of that 5 million was used to pay Kaw Electric for power at the intake and at the booster pump station. The reason that was pulled out is because it was more cost effective for us to manage that versus paying Garney to manage that.
okay.
Okay, so you can see this 6.1 number right here. 2 of that is outside the GMP. Okay, the other 4 is savings that's outside the GMP. On top of what's on this slide is another 4.5 million that's inside the GMP on contract with Garney Construction.
Okay.
Okay,
All right.
address the question.
Yes, sir.
Jason?
Thank you, Chris. Okay, good evening, folks. I'm Jason Jansen, representing Garney, CMAR, and I'll be responsible for program oversight and delivery of this program for the city of Enid. So if we start first and foremost with the reconciliation timeline. If we go all the way back to solicitation set number 1, as we get further in this agenda, most of these items we're talking about all refer back to solicitation set number 1. The key to solicitation set number 1, that was the only solicitation set or bid package that was actually incorporated into our GMP based on 60% design. That was a large package consisting of pipe materials, process equipment, the tunnel crossings, the intake, and the 4 directional drill river crossings. If we follow the timeline on over, in the November, Garney submitted the 60% GMP, the close of November. That process continued and got final acceptance in January of this year. Following that GMP, again, the GMP approval, design has continued to progress and move forward, as well as the solicitation sets. Post the GMP submission, solicitation set number 2, with the pipeline valves, miscellaneous right-of-way restoration, temporary fence gaps, and a variety of site preparation packages, both at the water plant as well as the booster pump station. Carrying on forward in the solicitation group number 3, that was a portion of the water treatment plant, as well as the electrical and INC controls, and a portion of the raw water pipeline installation segments 1 through 3. Moving out further on the horizon, and currently under advertisement today, is solicitation set number 4. That will be the remainder of the water treatment plant facility. Currently on this agenda for our timeline, I just want to call attention. Today, we have solicitation group number 5 flagged, not within that package, but we intend to incorporate it as a remainder of the intake, the shell package, the stuff above the ground, outside of the vertical shaft and outside of the micro tunnel. I want to offer a caveat, part of solicitation group number 5. We'll be looking at timing of the market. What we don't know today is whether within solicitation group number 5, we'll continue to carry the Chestnut waterline portion of the potable installation, or will they'll move that out into early next year, part of solicitation group number 6. But over the course of the next few months, we'll continue to refine our upcoming solicitation schedule. Next slide, please. Chris, you covered this one. You want me to move on to the next one? So what is the GMP? And it was a guaranteed maximum price submitted back in November based on 60% design. Post-submission of the GMP on 60% design, there's been a progression getting the plan sets from 60% to permitted plan sets today. Additionally, and we'll carve this out into two discussions, additionally, there's been incorporation of regulatory components that weren't known at the time of the prior GMP submission. Also part of the GMP that was submitted is a list of documented assumptions and clarifications. Also inclusive within the GMP was the CMAR contingency and applicable fee portions. What was not part of the 60% GMP submission was progression of design post 60%, nor the regulatory items that we'll go into further discussion with today. Those two components to amend or reconcile the GMP are to be incorporated by change order in accordance with the agreement.
On the, at the bottom, you have, can you go back to that slide?
Yes, sir.
On the secured loan interest rate, is it still the same 1.8%?
Yes, sir.
That's still the same, so that's gonna, okay.
It mentions early procurement. The situation we're in, we hear that, 2x4s cost a bunch of money. What difference has that made? Did you build that in, or?
So to touch on both of those items, the first one, timing of the 60% was to hit a fixed timeline. If we would have held on submission of the GMP, the submission of that financial could have stretched out 2-3 months, however long it would take for design to progress from 60 to 90. That's the one component. The second component of that, the early procurement packages, and if we go back to a couple of slides on the timeline, solicitation group number 1 had some of the major components of infrastructure associated with this project. The directional drills, the bore tunnels, the instrumentation equipment package, the pipe materials, some of the major components to ensure a fixed cost of those components based upon 60% design at that time. Had we not have advertised and put that out in the time that we did, we'd be looking at current market conditions today.
Brilliant, okay.
Just to go back to the two components or categories of discussion, design progression and regulatory. The design progression was intended to capture the differences between 60% and progression of design into permitted plans where we sit today. Within the city's budget, and this was not included in the GMP, was a $2 million set aside for design contingency. The design progression is intended to maintain the 3 pillars throughout the basis of design for this program. Separate of the design progression is the regulatory. The regulatory scope is added or new scope post-submission of the GMP, and Commissioner Norwood, I think to kind of go back to the CMAR contingency, the contingency is not intended to be the basis for a change order, nor to address changes in scope. I think it was important as we kind of advance through this slide. Also within regulatory, the USACE mitigation, regulatory compliance, utility coordination, landowner requirements, and on the regulatory side, no adverse impacts to the 3 pillars. Moving on to the fundamental basis of the design for the entirety of the program is the 3 pillars. This is absolutely pivotal to the overall success of the program to maintain a high level of quality, the Water Standard and Drinking Act, the durability of the system based on a 30-year lifespan, and the volume needs to meet the city's demands of 10.5 MGD. Again, the entirety of the engineering design and the basis of this revolves around the 3 pillars. Just to itemize the two components, the magnitude of the design progression is approximately 2.5, and the regulatory is approximately 1.6, for a total of $4,246,154. We get into the next agenda, or the next slide, that provides more itemization. I'll stop and add some additional detail once we get into the regulatory component. This is an itemization of the 7 items associated with design progression. The first 3 pertain to the pipeline. The very first item, the pressure class, hydraulic adjustments, fittings, and outlets. Post 60% design and submission of the 60% GMP, there was a refinement of the hydraulic grade line. There was a number of engineering revisions incorporated in the plans to identify the high-risk burst points, et cetera. The gist of this line item, we secured pricing, part of solicitation group number 1, on unit cost. The gist of this item is a plus-minus delta of agreed-upon previously unit cost, whether it be pipe footage by pressure class, outlets, et cetera. The second item on the pipeline refers to the horizontal directional drill steel pipe coating. This is a large item. On 60% design within the original GMP, the design parameters at that time, there was a product that was at a very cost premium. It was fusion bonded epoxy, to the tune of approximately a $3.3 million premium. In order to not pay a premium for a product to allow design to progress and evolve forward, determination was made to select a different product, polyurethane, for the coating of the directional drill pipe. Post-submission of the GMP, design progression continued, additional site exploration and geotechnical was ongoing, and it identified a number of concerns from the engineering standpoint of fractured granite, et cetera, that there was a concern from engineering that the coating system needed to be more durable and more robust. Through a series of design revisions, through 2 multiple products, landed on the final product of Powercrete J for an ARO coating system of the 4 directional drills. The third item on pipeline refers to the steel casing. To provide some history, a while ago, the original basis of the program was on steel pipeline. The important thing to note there is that the outside diameter of a steel pipe product differs than the best valued product that was actually awarded. The 30-inch pipe that was awarded was a 303 concrete bar wrap steel cylinder pipe. It has a larger OD than the steel pipe. 60% design on the 30-inch pipe segments, it consisted of 42-inch steel casing pipe at the road tunnels, the creek tunnels, the stream tunnels, et cetera, to accommodate the best valued pipe that was awarded. This is purely a cost to upsize that steel casing from 42 to 48 inch. The next item, the next 3 items pertain to the intake. The first item is an access road subgrade. That item, post-submission of the 60%, again, the intake was part of bid package 1 or solicitation set number 1. Additional geotech exploration continued, and engineering determination was made to incorporate a subgrade base stabilization of 6-inch cement soil stabilization underneath that north access road for improved durability and robustness of that roadway. And that's what this item is to capture. Beneath that, at the intake, is the floating log boom. The floating log boom, and this is just a nominal component of the total price structure of the floating log boom. The floating log boom serves a multitude of purposes, primarily for safety for the city of Enid, with creating a safe zone harbor to keep boating, keep swimmers, keep the general public out away from the intake zone. But again, through a progression of design, the original product that was specified through a series of validations against cathodic properties, et cetera, there was a slight adjustment to that design. This is just the cost delta to provide a design that's cathodically compliant and corrosive resistant for the overall system needs. The last item on the intake consists of upgrades to the 2 vertical turbine pumps. At original 60% design, as I'd mentioned earlier on the pipeline component, thereafter was a refinement in the HGL, a refinement in engineering design, and the 2 pumps are the pump supplier that was awarded, part of solicitation group number 1. Design continued, and there was a realization that there needs to be some improvements for those pumps to meet the minimum 10.5 MGD. This dollar amount is to award change order to that pump supplier to improve the properties of those turbine pumps to meet the minimum flow requirements needed to maintain the 3 pillars. The last item pertains to flow control valves and meters. And you might ask, why is this such a large item? Well, simply stated, during 60% design, there was tremendous collaboration between CMAR and the design team. In one of the many areas at the ozone system, there was team effort and collaboration to reduce that footprint. Throughout the reduction of that footprint, that yielded a huge windfall savings, approximately $3 million. It was substantial. And originally at 60% design, there was a single dosing point of concrete. Thereafter, with all the progression in design, there was continual input from DEQ, et cetera. During solicitation set number 1, an addendum was released to allow design to catch up, and it removed the 2 sets of valves from the 2 header systems that were in place at 60% design. Design today consists of 2 contact points that altered from concrete to now stainless steel. This costing component captures 4 24-inch motorized operated valves, as well as 4 each 18-inch flow meters to accommodate the 2 dosing points. The total of the design progression is $2,568,091. Before I move on, any questions on the design progression?
Can you back up one slide? I wanted to see your number, the total number on that. 246,154. What we have in our, we show a change order for 176,154.
Yes, sir.
There are actually 2 change orders. There's one for Garney and one for Garver, and the total of the 2 is what's on these slides.
Okay, all right, thank you. That's all I had.
Okay.
And just that, the pump, we've got, there's room for 3, we're putting in 2, but we've adjusted the 2 that we're putting into a different type of pump. Is that what I'm understanding?
Sure, should I come to the podium?
Sure.
Hello, everyone. I'm Jennifer Russell, Assistant Program Manager. So the 2 pumps and the changes that happen to the 2 pumps, the 2 pumps are necessary in order to get the 10.5 million gallons a day to the city. When the 60% design was completed, that design was based on average flows, which is typical for a 60% design. When we moved from 60% design to final design, the design now incorporated the maximum and minimum flows and lake levels. The Kaw Lake fluctuates quite a bit, about 30 feet on pond times, and so the power that the pumps would need to have to draw in the water and pump it out to the city varies. So the accommodations and those changes to the pumps allow the city now to get the 10.5 million gallons a day when the boundary conditions, those maximum and minimum conditions for the intake are in place. So it gives you more reliability and a much more robust system
Okay.
in order to meet that 10.5 million gallons.
And so then if we had somebody that came along and wanted to draw water off of that pipe, then we'd put in another pump.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
I have a grip on it. Thank you.
Okay.
Moving on to the regulatory summary. The first 2 items pertain to the USACE mitigation. The first of the 2 items pertains to Garney CMAR. The second of the 2 items pertains to Garver on the engineering and environmental services. So both of these items, again, use mitigation. Generally speaking, there was additional requirements. This scope of work consists of an added environmental footprint, approximately 7,200 feet of perimeter fencing, an isolation or perimeter gate, as well as a little over 22 acres of cedar tree clearing, excuse me. The next item down on the intake and pertains to the cost to provide a third vertical pump. The third vertical pump is for system redundancy, future demands, and the incorporation of this, and I don't want to speak on behalf of engineering, but it's to add an additional MGD. And that's the turnkey, total of the costing for pump, electrical scope, et cetera, within the intake system. The next two items pertain to the intake with regards to the vertical shaft and the micro tunnel out to the source supply water of this program. The first item, micro tunnel auxiliary pipe inside the casing, going all the way back to 60% design. And again, there was tremendous amount of collaboration to refine this design. If we go back to 60%, the original steel casing component of that was a 42-inch. Today it's 48-inch. On this pipe, on this component or line item in particular, two major scopes apply to this. The airburst piping, intended to keep the intake screens clear, increased in size from 6-inch to 8-inch, throughout the entirety of that micro tunnel. Additionally, the pneumatic valve operator piping that actually opens and closes the cycling of the valve that's submerged underwater. That piping component was, again, increased or upsized from a 3/4 inch Schedule 10 to a Schedule 40. So two fairly major significant components to improve the robustness and strength of that system. But more importantly, so that that entirety of that system can operate based on long-term future needs, the 28 MGD. The opportunity to capture it up front, to have it complete, avoids continued and extended delays and added expenses way down the road. The second component of this is the intake header system. So I already alluded to or mentioned the 42-inch was upsized to 48. Part of this header system, it's a very complex system, but there was a T that was added, part of the final design, and this T connects to the 48 to the 72, and then has a 60-inch stainless steel blind flange outlet assembly. That is what houses the entirety of those airburst piping. Additionally, there was 2-inch chemical feed lines were added to the design, and the pneumatic air piping, or pneumatic valve operated piping. All those assemblies interlace into that complex header system. And again, this component is in place today for long-term future needs of the 28 MGD. The next item at the intake is a culvert pipe. This item is, again, post-solicitation set number 1, part of the property owner permitting requirements. It's the driveway entrance culvert pipe assembly to gain access from Overlook Road into the north access road on down to the intake. That completes the intake scope. And moving on to the intermediate booster pump station. This next item is Kaw Electric. Kaw Electric came forth post 60% submission and asked for an additional transformer pad for atom system redundancy. And then moving on to the water treatment plant. The ozone and hydrogen peroxide, there was some additional equipment incorporation into the design mandated by DEQ to make the ozone system compatible and operational from a permitting standpoint. The last item on this list goes back to the pipelines. Previously, we talked about the steel casing pipe on the design progression. Part of the regulatory alterations to the design, this is to capture on the railroad tunnel crossings an increase in nominal pipe wall thickness from 0.5 inch wall to a 0.625 inch wall, so a thicker casing to be compliant with the railroad regulatory entities as well as to meet their cathodic protection provisions within that permit. And the totality of this is the $1,678,063, including the engineering and environmental services. Anything else on regulatory?
So that's today's cost, the $1,678,063. Are we planning on putting that third pump in now, or is it something that we're gonna wait on for in the future?
That third pump is in there because during the process, I instructed them to do so.
Okay.
If the commission wishes to take it out, we most certainly can. My recommendation is, at a minimum, leave the electrical. I would also recommend that you add the pump, but that's your choice.
I agree with your recommendation, looking at the prices of fluctuation in prices. You know, looking just in general stock market prices of retail, and I would rather that we
Yeah.
go with that.
Part of it's prices, part of it is if you have two instead of three, they both run 100% all the time.
So we can alternate.
Redundancy. This gives you the ability to be able to throttle it back a little bit so they don't wear out quite as quickly.
And plus, we will have our water wells that we currently have to back us up if we needed to, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And we'll be peaking out of the well system once we reach to the demand that exceeds or gets to the point where it's 10.5 out of the lake. We peak out of the well field.
And we have our own emergency power sources at the intake, don't we?
I do not believe that we've allowed for a generator.
I thought we did. I thought that was the
tried.
plan. Oh,
We tried.
so if we go down on electric, the system,
We go back to the well fields.
okay.
And as long as we don't have power outages on both ends, we should be okay. I mean, and we're living today with one system, one source.
Just one other thing is, we currently have all the permitting to put forth that third pump now. If we decided not to go with the third pump now, what's the cost gonna be like 2 to 3 years from now when we possibly need that third pump to get to that 28?
Yes, sir, that's a very good question. So currently, the permits from the Oklahoma Department of Environmental Quality, ODEQ, include that third pump. We've made some initial requests, and it looks like they will not require re-permitting now, but there are several steps that the city will have to take, including identifying a particular benchmark, be that of water demand or time, for when those permits, then when the third pump will be installed. And so the city will have to identify back to the permitting authority when that will happen. At that time, the costs will be likely significantly higher for the installation. And may I offer, installing the third pump later may be a bit akin to building a ship in a bottle. It's going to be a lot easier and cheaper to put it in now. All of the contractors are mobilized, and the cost that you see right now is simply the cost for the pump. It doesn't include the construction costs, the engineering costs, and the time required in order to do all of that.
I thought that the folks that were maybe going to draw water off of this were helping pay for that third pump, or is that just creating a hole in the pipe that allows them to draw it off, for lack of better terms?
So what we have done is we've reserved capacity within the hydraulic capacity within the system up to the second Arkansas River crossing, which means we don't have to do anything physically at the intake or the pipeline. The T's will be in the ground where they can grab the water. They will have to, at that time, if there is a cost associated with upgrading the capacity of the pumping capacity of the system, they do get to share that cost.
Okay.
And once they start drawing, when that upgrade is required, and we show them what that upgrade requirement is, they do get a share in that cost as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
More questions on this one? Okay, let me go back to one slide. And this is my expectations, and I would expect it to be yours as well. But let's not disagree with it. You'll see that we've done solicitation 1 prior to the GMP, right? These solicitations are in the GMP. They've accounted for those costs. So regardless of what shows up, I don't expect them coming back to me for additional funding unless it's outside the scope of what is in the GMP. You agree?
I do.
Okay. On to the recommendation. It's my recommendation that we approve this change order and the one for the engineering services and the environmental for Garver. What that will do is that will change your GMP to 247. We will still be able to maintain that 317.5 budget. And in that 317.5, I got one in a little bit that's still in the cost savings, and he's got 4.5 in construction contingency. I'm fairly certain I'm gonna have to spend my one on other things. I've got to buy furniture and equipment for the laboratory, for one thing. So that is my recommendation.
We're at a 60% design. No, we're beyond that.
We are at 100% design.
Design, okay.
We have DEQ permits for everything with the exception of the water treatment plant. It has tentatively been approved short of the 30-day review, public review.
Okay.
So we do not anticipate any changes.
And as far as material, the pipe itself, when will we start laying the pipe?
Currently refining the schedule, but pipe installation right now could happen as early as late fall to right after the 1st of next year.
Okay.
So they will all be gathered in one location somewhere around here and then strung out, or?
No, so and I'll touch on two components. So we've currently advertised and awarded segments 1 through 3. Those will be constructed linearly, moving through 1, 2, and 3. In the next few months, we'll advertise part of solicitation group number 5, segments 4 through 8. And again, those will be constructed sequentially. They'll stagger behind 1 and 3. Separate of the pipeline, within the next month, we're looking to mobilize the tunnel crew to begin construction of the creek tunnels, those bores, the various ODOT crossings, the state highways, et cetera. Towards the end of October, as far as pipeline components, we'll begin receipt of delivery of the directional drill piping, begin staging those. The first effort of that will initiate on the 2 30-inch directional drills. Thereafter, with a stagger, we'll shift to the 2 36-inch directional drills. Those 2 differing sizes will be constructed with 2 different size drill equipment headings.
So has the pipe been paid for already?
As far as, there will be, within this month's pay request, we'll be looking to put in some of the steel coil components for part of the pay application, part of that solicitation set number 1. That pipe is procured, it is under contract, and it is under fabrication, anticipation of delivery.
So when will all the pipe be completely paid for?
Paid for or on contract?
Whichever.
On contract? Pipes on
That's fine.
contract.
Yeah. So
For
we
when it
won't
gets-
have a fluctuation in the cost? Okay.
I'm not anticipating one.
I'm just asking questions that I've been asked from my constituents. They're watching, you know, they listen.
As far as the payment portion, until the manufacturer either provides us with a request for steel coil compensation or the actual delivery start happening and getting staged on the project, there'll be no material no material billings for those piping components.
And are we going to start staging pipe as we go, or are we gonna?
So on the directional drills, that award was to Global. They'll be responsible for staging the pipe deliveries of each of those 4 drill locations. Segments 1 through 3 have been previously awarded to 2 different firms. Each of the respective installation contractors, we know who 1 through 3 are, but whomever is determined on 4 through 8 will be responsible for staging and acceptance of those deliveries.
Okay.
So do they test these, like, every 10 pipes or whatever, to make sure that the concrete is appropriate and it's all that good stuff? I mean, when we lay streets around here, we test, so it's a fair question. Do they do that?
They'll be testing parameters as defined by AWWA and in accordance with the project specifications that will happen at the factory before it's delivered and shipped to the project. It goes through an internal set of QA/QC checks and balances to ensure the hydrostatic properties and the coating lining properties before that product ever leaves the manufacturer and arrives on site.
I'm gonna ask a question of my own, and then I'm gonna ask a question of a colleague, so, constituent, I'm sorry. My question is, who does the inspections when the pipe is laid? Connections?
Does the inspections while a pipe is laid?
Yes, sir.
Well, there's a number of folks that are doing that. We have Garney Construction as the construction manager that's responsible for ensuring that the construction is done correctly, regardless of who is laying the pipe and who is in the trench. We've hired Envirotech previously to help us check those things as it goes along.
Okay.
And then Garver has on-site construction inspectors that are also taking pictures.
Okay, and a question from my constituent, that is, where does the water that goes into Kaw Lake, where does it come from originally? Arkansas River.
It comes from the Arkansas River and it flows from Colorado across Kansas.
Okay, and the reason why this individual wanted me to ask this question is because they're watching the wildfires in the west. And they're like, we're not getting much snow, so I'm asking the questions. That's why I'm asking that one.
When we first started looking at Kaw Lake as a source of water, we went back during that extreme drought that we had and looked at the fluctuation of lake levels of the lakes around within Oklahoma. It never dropped below 95% what they call normal.
Okay.
And when we had the big rains, it was completely full.
And isn't there some natural springs that feed in just above Kaw?
I have no idea, sir.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
Does that complete the presentation?
Yes, it does.
Then I'm ready to move to approve this.
Okay,
Need a second?
motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, thank you. Cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0.
Along that line, talking about, the droughts that they're experiencing west. And if you ask some of those communities, would it be worth $317 million to get you all the water you can use for the next X amount of years? I'm pretty sure they'd all vote for that, So that's the way I look at this situation for Enid, Oklahoma. It ensures us a very bright future that has water, and if we can attract some business or manufacturing that needs some of that water, we're able to supply it to them, and that's a big deal as we find out what the global warming process is going to be.
All right. Next up is item 3.2. It's approve amendment number 6 with Garver. Of Garver, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma for project number W2112A Kaw Lake Program Phase 4 Construction Services in the amount of $70,000 and authorize the mayor to execute all documents. What I'll say is the last slides that we looked at, remember I pointed out the difference in numbers? That's because this 70 goes with 41, 76 from the other one, and it adds up to that total that we looked at. Is that correct?
Yes, sir, that is.
Okay, so it's actually
A breakdown.
the Garver share of that increase.
Move to approve.
Okay,
Second.
motion and a second. Any other discussion? Seeing none, cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item 3.3, consider a resolution amending the 2020-2021 2021-2022 Water Capital Improvement Fund budget by appropriating additional funds in the amount of $4,246,154 to increase the 2021-2022 appropriated amounts for the Water Capital Improvement Department.
Yes, Mayor Commissioners, this covers the funding for the first two items that you just approved. There are funds available still in the 2019 FAP funds to fund this change orders.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item 3.4, consider a resolution authorizing the Enid Municipal Authority to purchase a letter of credit for the purpose of right-of-way bonding as required by the Bureau of Indian Affairs and renew annually during the term of the right-of-way.
Yes. During the process of land acquisition, there are 6 parcels that are with the Bureau of Indian Affairs, and part of their regulations are in the Code of Federal Regulations, and we have to provide bonding as part of that packet to go to them. They have requested $40,000 in funding. Letter of credit was reviewed and deemed to be the lowest cost option, but to issue a letter of credit, the city has to authorize the authority to go into debt for that letter of credit. So that's what this resolution is doing.
Is this a one-time?
It will be annually.
Okay.
Yeah.
40,000 annually.
For the term of the right-of-way agreement.
How long is that?
From here on out,
Indefinitely?
I believe these are indefinite.
Okay.
we'll be long gone.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a companion item with this as well?
Right, and the companion
okay.
item is actually to purchase the letter of credit, and the fee for purchasing that $40,000 in bonding is only $500. But
Right.
the authority is who is actually doing the purchase.
It just appeared to be a very simple thing to me, so I moved to approve.
Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Any other discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. We've covered items 3.5 and 3.6 already. Item 3.7, consider approval of a resolution amending the 2021-2022 Stormwater Fund budget by appropriating additional funds in the amount of $150,000 to increase the 2021-2022 appropriated amounts for Stormwater Fund, Stormwater Department.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Okay, item number, renumbered number 4 is recess to convene as the Enid Municipal Authority. Item 5, all trustees of the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting, except Commissioner Roberts, are in attendance. Item number 6, the Enid Municipal Authority special meeting is now in session. Item 6.1, consider a resolution increasing the 2021-2022 fiscal financial plan for the Enid Municipal Authority in the amount of $4,246,154.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item 6.2, consider approval of the purchase of a letter of credit with Security National Bank, Enid, Oklahoma, for right-of-way requirements as required by the Bureau of Indian Affairs in the amount of $500 and renew annually during the term of the right-of-way.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Cast your ballots. Motion carries 6-0. Thank you. Item number 7, adjourn to reconvene as the Enid City Commission. Item number 8, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Boom. There it is.
There it is. Good stuff.
I do. I don't think so. Okay, good. We're good. Just doing signatures now first.
That's right.